Welcome to this Townhall meeting. We do appreciate your presence here, and we're going to get right into these things, and we're going to ask our chaplain, Sister Bush, to lead us in prayer. Sister Lewis.
I'm standing again. Father, let everyone gather here with me. As we ask questions that's on our mind, let us not acknowledge that a distinguished leader may not have all the answers at this time. I need to put the right words in their mouth. As children of God, may we show love to our sisters and brothers, and to all who show your love of the end situation. Let the refreshments that have been provided, and bless the hand that's provided. Also, let's be mindful of this possible. All the things we have to lead us to.
Amen.
Thank you very much, Sister Lewis. I understand we're going to have a lot of President.
Members of the head table, National Congress of Members Party, here at home. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Townhall meeting. I'm talking already to answer questions. I hope that we informative and educating. I also wish to express special thanks to the delegation coming from Barbados to so again, welcome.
Thank you very much, Marlene. At this time, we're going to have some brief remarks. President of the party, Comrade, on creative work.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Price, and also thank you to the president of the DLP New York branch, Ms. Marlene Tate-Mead. And I want to say it's a pleasure for us from Barbados to be here with you today for this town hall meeting, and also spending the time with you yesterday at the Barbados Festival Day at Canarsie. We really did have a wonderful time, and it's a beautiful event, and we want to commend you for keeping the Democratic Labour Party flag flying within the USA with a spectacular event that brings out Barbadians part of America as far as California and Canada, just to spend time over the weekend with other Barbadians. Our delegation from Barbados, I will just salute some of those persons who joined us for this weekend. We have our Vice President Felicia Dujon, who is also our candidate for St. James North, and Executive Council member Mr. Ainsley Granger, our candidate for St. Michael East. Also within the delegation is Dr. Derek Allen, member of the General Council and also working within the office of the Leader of the Opposition, and Mr. Adrian Allen, who works in the Opposition Leader's office. We have David Boyne, who is our communications person handling the stream today, and his wife, Maureen Wiltshire. He's David Wiltshire, she's Maureen Wiltshire. Right, and then we also had joining us from Connecticut, who worked along with us, Miss Sue Harris and her husband, Barclay Harris. We had the opportunity on Friday to actually meet with some Barbadians living in Connecticut at an event hosted by Sue and Barclay. And that was well attended. And throughout that program as well, we also got persons to join and show interest. Because one of the reasons that we are here is because we want to keep the DLP flag flying within the diaspora. And we recognize that we need to expose what is happening in Barbados and also to recruit persons who may have an interest, first generation, but second and third generation, and spread our wings. We are traditionally known within New York, but we would want to cover all of North America. We have the Canadian branch and we also have the UK branch. We will be doing a similar event in August in the UK around August 9th. The UK branch has organized a market day, and the president, the political leader, the president, and Comrade Felicia Dujon will be speaking at that market day. So again, an opportunity for the DLP to, relate with the diaspora, so that you will know that the Democratic Labour Party is alive and well, and we are about a serious business to be the next government when the election is called. And in order for that to happen, we need to have the support of our members and let you know what we are doing. And we also need to hear your concerns as well. And this is what we have been doing over the last few days while we were here in North America. And this is your opportunity for those of you here in New York. So I want to thank you for welcoming us and being here with us. And we do look forward to engaging with you and working with you to keep this Democratic Labour Party New York branch flying high. And we definitely will be offering you whatever support that you need. You know that you are eager to know what is going on in Barbados. So that's why we have the political leader, the Honorable Ralph Thorne, here with us today, who would give you that insight as to what is going on in Barbados from the political perspective, the economic perspective, and the social perspective as well. And also how you as Barbadians living in the diaspora can also contribute and support the work of the Democratic Labour Party. So I thank you for having us here this evening, and I look forward to engaging with you.
Thank you very much for Andre. This time, I want to introduce to you, present to you earlier, the leader, and the leader of opposition, the Honorable Thorne, and his
Thank you very much. Good evening to everyone. And let me acknowledge the head table president and former president and former consul general, Mr. Price, President, Senator, and Greer World. And I will repeat the formalities. Our candidate for St. Michael East. St. Michael East, for those of you who've been living in America too long, would be Ivy and my Lord Hill and places like that. Mr. Ainsley Granger. Ainsley is a lawyer in Barbados, and before he became a lawyer, he was a good police officer, and he's now a good lawyer. I don't know why that evokes laughter. If you think that a man cannot spend much of his life arresting people and then in the second half of his life defend them, it is possible. Next to him is his Felicia Dujon, who was our standing bearer in the last election. Very good young lady, good young mother, wife, and teacher at the University of US Felicia Dujon. The executive assistant, Dr. Derek Aline, at the opposition office. Mr. Adrian Aline. A lot of you see the LPTV and the press conferences That's Mr. David Wiltshire Bowen. Who does it all for nothing? And since we are not financially strong, I hope he continues to do it all for nothing. Every press conference we do, every day at the TV, every Tuesday night, David Wiltshire Bowen is there running the show. The formalities cannot end unless we acknowledge Mark Play and Stu. Well, let me get that the other way around. Stu and Mark Play. I apologize to you, Mark Play. This wonderful couple hosted us in Connecticut. Made what I call a pilgrimage, really, a pilgrimage to the United States. Really special. It was an elegant occasion. We're so happy that you treated us in such special care. We felt important at your house in the beautiful Connecticut. Thank you very much, Sue and Barclay and Sue. But I'm making it equal with all these other kids when you get back to Connecticut. We keep it equal. When I came in, you saw me sitting in the corner. And to be honest with you, it is difficult to discuss politics when you have a reunion. I had a half-hour reunion with two friends from Grisettes. We grew up in Grisettes together, and we could hit each other's house with a stone. Not that we did. Mr. Edwin Reeves and Monica in the back. We had a lovely reunion. We hadn't seen each other for a long time, but that's the nature of things. You come to the United States, and it really becomes a social reunion, and politics becomes a very difficult subject. But I am the political leader of the Democratic Labour Party, so I'm constrained to discuss politics here this evening. We have with us as well Ms. Val Hoyt, who contributes heavily on social media in defense of this party. Val, do you want me to point you out? That's Valerie Hoyt. All the way in New York, and Val does more president than a lot of people who are living in Barbados. Val defends this party on social media. Morning, noon, and night. Val, we thank you so much for what you're doing at the Democratic Party. And thanks to all of you for coming. As I said, it feels like a reunion, and therefore politics becomes a very difficult subject. But just today in Barbados, Sunday, a young man was shot in Eden Lodge. Today, at about 12:15, midday, you would have heard that just about 2 Sundays ago, 2 or 3 Sundays ago, high daytime again, just up the street, Monica and Edwin would know these places well. He was killed at the Montgomery pasture. Who knows Montgomery? Pasture people, excellent. That's O'Neill. Welcome, O'Neill. O'Neill Jones. Why did you come to the Grisette reunion just now? O'Neill grew up with this in Grisette. And he was killed a few Sundays ago. And note the name of the week I'm speaking about, Sunday. He was killed at the Montgomery pasture. The most activity that used to go on O'Neill on the Montgomery pasture was when the fellas from Grisette go play the fellas from Cable. And on Friday nights, when the mobiles to them again. And that was the most action you had on Montgomery pasture. This is a different Barbados. The Barbados that you all left. When you go back and you see it and you feel it, you may go to the beach and think that you're feeling the original Barbados, but it is not on the beaches. There's something that is happening within the communities of Barbados that you did not know when you left. And that's what we're here to speak about this evening. I always tell the story, and I'm sure you've heard me tell the story, that when the Pan Am door closed, because I think this is the Pan Am generation here. This is the Blue generation. Right, this is the Pan Am generation, and possibly Easter. Possibly. And I want you all to confess what y'all did when the door closed. But when the door closed, we used to cry. We leave in the airport and we balling. Y'all used to cry inside the thing. But until it nobody cried, and you born into it. Yes. And I always express gratitude to you. In many ways, the pioneers coming into a country where you face initial loneliness. I was speaking to Levi Walks. I haven't seen Levi since 1991. He was surprised every time. Levi is supposed to hear this evening, but I think he may still have a Barbadian passport, so we expect him to be late. And we had a lovely conversation yesterday when Levi came here for 1975. He wanted a ticket to go back immediately. The loneliness that he faced, the absolute loneliness in the United States, and landed in the middle of winter, something he had heard about it, but to feel and experience it. And y'all are heroes, you know, for coming into a country facing loneliness, you know, possibly facing other social factors like racism and so on, and surviving it. And not only surviving it, but making for our survival back home. Because, you know, you left communities of poverty. And in coming here, you alleviated to a large extent that poverty. And I want to tell you that so significant was your alleviation of the poverty that you left behind, that when the central bank is doing its report, it calculates the figures of remittances, don't worry about the big word, money that you send back. It's calculated in central bank report as part of Barbados' national income, so that has been the extent of your contribution to your country that you love and still love. And we are here this evening to return that love with the good news of Barbados, that there is hope, that hope never dies, but with the bad news that we now live in a society which on Sunday afternoons, young men are being shot in Barbados. Sundays used to be the general hour. In Barbados, you left on Sundays, everybody, the only noise in the street was the noise of people going to or from church. And even the rum shops, the front door was closed, but you had a side door. Every time you walked to the water, he had to take through the side door and get a snack. The blue generation does not know what is a snack. Your generation, the Panam generation knows what's a snack. So a fellow who could have waited until Monday would go by the side door and the shopkeeper would moisturize it. But that is the Sunday that we knew. And I started on today's violence to indicate to you, and it is not isolated. These fellas have no regard for the day of the week, the sacredness of the day. You know Sundays, and they are violating the sacredness of Sundays by killing each other, not hitting each other with big rocks, pulling guns, very violent, noisy guns, and shooting each other. Why is it happening? Why is this happening? Now, we normally accuse the government of not doing what it should do to curb violence in Barbados. And the government's response has been that you cannot politicize violence, crime or violence. That crime is not a political issue, and we challenge that. Of course, crime is a political issue. And hopefully, we will demonstrate to you how crime becomes a political issue. I made some notes. Last night again, a lady in Warren's car park at around 7 o'clock. I take it you know Warren's, and I take it you know Massey. In Warren's, you come here late, and you know easy. Better late than never. Come, we're having a reunion. Warren's last night at 7 o'clock was a place of violence again, and this audience, like the churches, is majority female. And I want to say to you that a lot of the violence and crime is targeting women, and they target women because they're women, because women are perceived as the weaker sex and they're vulnerable, so they are targeting women. And just last night, the lady gets into her car, comes out to the supermarket, gets into her car, and while she sits in the front seat, a man jumps into the passenger seat, another one pulls her out of the driver's seat, and they tried. And this is happening in Barbados. And it is not isolated. Again, last night, there was some incident at Top Rock gas station. And these are very public places. Crime has come into very public places in Barbados. And you have a government saying, but that's not a political issue, that we're not responsible for that. We're not blaming government, as I always say, we're not blaming government for every incident of crime. But government has a political responsibility to use the resources at its disposal and to empower the police service. And not only to empower the police service, but to go to Parliament and pass laws that will contribute towards curbing crime in Barbados. So it is a political issue. How can you say crime is not a political issue, and yet a government appoints a minister for crime prevention? So the minister for crime prevention is a politician. And if he is responsible for crime prevention, it is a political issue because the government intervenes with political solutions to prevent crime. So there is a contradiction in what government is telling you. It's not a political issue. Of course, it's a political issue. Those incidents to which I referred are going to be important as we have our discussion here this evening. My topic then is culture and crime in a changing society. What can a government do? Culture and crime in a changing society. What can a government do? Let's look at culture. We started the discussion by talking about culture. Culture, as you know, is all that goes on in a society. Everything we do, the foods we eat, where we dress, how we go to parties, everything we do is culture. Thank you very much. It's culture. And they are, or they have been institutions in Barbados that have helped to shape that culture. The Americans have their culture. You hear them talking about as American as life. So I suppose ours would be cocoa life. That's culture. Yes, macaroni. Changing culture. So that what is the Barbadian culture now? But let's look at what shaped our culture in Barbados. I began by talking about the sacredness of Sunday. That used to be our culture. Every little boy and girl in Barbados got up on Sunday morning. Go to church. No, you have to sweep the yard first. So you sweat the yard if you're a boy, you sweat the house if you're a girl. You get some lashes because you're late for church. And you go to church. And you come back home. And if you're a lady in the back home, back to Sunday school. And if you don't get first, back to church around 7 o'clock. And that was what we grew up in. That was our culture. An ordered, stable society in which Sunday was sacred. So that was only an aspect of culture. But from Monday to Friday, it was regimented. There was that order in your life because you went to school and you started with a prayer and the national anthem. Some of us are here saying God save the Queen, don't be embarrassed to say that, to admit that. I had to hear God saving the Queen too. Not ashamed to disclose that. When you sang the anthem, you did the prayer, it was a church service. It was a church service. Every morning. And at 2:45, when the quiet time came on, you would hear it on the radio future next to the school. Y'all don't know these things? The Madam generation must know these things. And you would sing the song. Try to remember the name of the hymn. One used to be Now the Day Has Ended, and so on and so on. Yes, of course. So that it was a culture that was heavily influenced by religious values. And society had a certain order. Yes, we did wrong things. We fought and we did things that we shouldn't do, but generally speaking, it was a better ordered society. And there was respect for authority. And I'm going to say a lot about the police force. When the policeman was riding down the street, all aspects of the culture. When the police officer rode the horse down the street, every little child off the street. Fair. But it was deferring to authority. Yeah? So it was a different society. You see the videos? The little children curse the police. Cursing. Not only the adults, because the adults cursing the police when the police come into the village. The children decide to curse them too. Now, you know, in early days, if you curse a police officer, you before the magistrate the next day, and you remanded overnight in the police station. Different society. Culture has changed. So that let us look at the institutions that shape that culture that the Pan Am generation knew. There was plantation. Because quite literally, if you were from rural Barbados, the country, you lived literally in the shadow of the plantation. And the plantation therefore influenced your lifestyle, your culture, because the people who lived in the country worked at the plantation. So the plantation to a large extent determined how you act and if you act, because they were your employers. Yeah, I mean, some people would become fishermen and so on, and by the way, fishermen are important as the first expression of free labor in Barbados. Not respected, but they were the first, among the first agents that expressed freedom of labor. They didn't have to go on any plantation like the rest of us. But the point is, it was the plantation that influenced the culture, the way people lived, because in the country, you were dependent on the plantation. In the urban parts of Barbados, where the plantation was not as prevalent, it would have been the merchant. The merchants who sold food. Most of our parents were employed with the merchants. Precisely. And so our lives and our lifestyle and our survival was dependent on that very powerful institution. I call it one institution. Those who had the wealthy, whether they were merchants or planters, and sometimes they were all. Our lifestyle, our entire culture, the way we live was influenced by those two institutions, the planter, the plantation, and the merchant. The other institution that influenced us that I made reference to this earlier, the church. 90+% of the children in Barbados were churchgoers. Not because we loved it, not because we wanted to, but we were sent. And our parents knew what we were doing there. It was about values. Because a lot of our moral values, the things we practice from day to day, were influenced by religious values. And that's why our parents were sent in us there. The 10 Commandments. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Honor your mother and father. Commandment number 5. The only one that gives the promise of long life, by the way. Yeah. There in your life. Yes. Commandment 5. And so the church influenced our values. And that's why I say this used to be sacred. Because you could not imagine that a fellow would even plant a rock at another fellow on a Sunday. If you were playing pizza, for the ladies now, if you're playing pizza on the front step, that's the part you could go on that generation. You could only go on the front step. And then the ball rolled down the street, you got to stick after that on the back and hope your parents not seeing you in the road. What are you doing in the road on Sunday afternoon? The same road that they did. That was the influence, the very heavy influence of the church on our life. School, as I said, school was really, in many ways, an extension of the church in terms of regimenting your life, ordering your life, teaching you values. But of course, the school was doing a little more than the church because the school was exposing us to the power of learning. And learning involves power because it's learning that gives us prospects later in life after we leave school. Learning and acquiring skills and that kind of thing, and discipline. The village, and I put the village and the family together as one institution. Because Pan Am generation, you were not raised by your family alone. You were raised by the village. And therefore, a walk from home to the bus stop was a walk under the scrutiny of the old lady at the corner who peeping through her window at you to see how you behaving. And then you behaving badly, by the time you got back home, somehow we didn't have hopes but the old lady. And you got some lashes. so that the village was raising you, and the village was the extended family. The old lady at the corner was as much your grandmother as was your real grandmother. So we were being raised by the village. So I'm talking culture here. That our culture, the lives we live, and our culture was influenced by these institutions. And I have put the family and the village as one institution, because John Brown did not live with Miss Brown alone. He was not under the authority of Miss Brown alone. He was under the authority of the entire village. As they say, it takes a village to raise a child. So the village, as an extension of the family, became a very important institution in shaping an entire culture, the way we behave. The fact that we come to New York and I see any Greeks and he and I talking like brothers, same village, Monica, same village, same respect, a shared experience, all born out of a shared experience in the village. And this is true for everyone in this room, Pan Am generation. It is true for everyone. You meet somebody from your village, you'll ask some quarrel sometime back, but you meet it in New York, so you're better get along. Because to a large extent, it is not the friendly society that you left behind, but the bad news I bring is that the friendly society that you left behind in Barbados is not so friendly again. Ask the lady at the car park at Masby. Now, this is part of the culture here. As you know, in Barbados, you're not, I said this before, you're not a real Bajan unless you turn a plate. That's a Bajan that doesn't want to. That's my eldest brother. He does this every year. Welcome to the culture. And he goes into the Vertex corner. And so, the final institution that I'm going to deal with that shapes the culture is the government. The government. Now, you know the Pan Am generation, when we went to school, a lot of the schools were run not by the government, by the churches, the Moravian Church. Graceville was my first school, and that was a Moravian Church school. But the government got involved in education. And being involved in education, the government therefore helps to shape the culture through the schools. And the government helps to shape the culture through schools that instill lives of order, lives of personal order. You need to be aware that the government has spent the last 7 years threatening to dismantle the educational system that you and I know. Yes, and in 2022, I signaled my first departure. During the budget debate, when I said, well, you're going to touch common entrance exam, if you touch pre-secondary education in Barbados, you will have to hear it from me. And that's the first signal to me that the departure was coming. I'm saying this now for the first time. But it is the government through the state, the institutions of the state, that helps to shape the culture, the local culture. And it does that through the provision of a public service. The government runs an entire public service, post office, water authority. It used to own the telephone company at one point here. Yes, but the government is involved, therefore, in local culture, in Barbadian culture, through these various agencies. And one of the important agencies at this time that you must know about is the same, we call it the Barbados Police Service now. You left it, the Royal Barbados. And if government has a responsibility for providing for a police service, government, and I will tell you about the relationship with government, between government and the Barbados Police Service. It is government's responsibility to provide basically two things for police service: money and manpower. And in the last estimates, government provided $164 million for the Barbados Police Service. So government is involved in the prevention of crime. The amount of money that they decide to give is a political decision. So crime and the prevention of crime is a political issue. And not only must government provide money and manpower to the Barbados Police Service, but it must provide moral support. The police officers in Barbados must feel or are entitled to feel that the government is supporting them. But what makes the relationship between although the government provides manpower through the vote of money and money itself to run the thing, the police service is not the servant of the government. It is not. If the police service were the servant of the government, the head of the government could tell the commissioner who to charge or who not to charge, so that the law prevents the government from having that direct influence in the day-to-day affairs of the police service by inserting in the law, stipulating in the law, that the commissioner is responsible to the governor general, now called the president. It bypasses the prime minister, the attorney general. They have no business. No politician has any business in the day-to-day affairs of the Barbados Police Service. Their role is to provide manpower, that is to say, enough posts that you can have enough police officers. They're supposed to build police stations, for example, and they're supposed to provide moral support. They're supposed, the police service is supposed to feel and entitled to feel that it has the support of the government, but it is independent of the government. So that the Prime Minister cannot call any police officer from the commissioner back down to the most junior constable and direct them as to who can be charged for criminal offense. If that were so, it becomes a police state, and all hell breaks loose that. Now, I have come here to tell the truth, and I don't know how far the news reaches New York, or if it reaches New York from Barbados. But there's a certain parliamentarian, he said it publicly, so I can repeat it. He was charged for criminal offense before the court, and he said that he was framed. And he called the minister by name and said that the minister gave evidence against him in court and lied on him. If that had happened in the United States of America, where you live, that minister, that politician would have had to resign. But welcome back to the country that you left behind. That one member of parliament is charged for criminal offense. He is acquitted, and on the steps of the court, he said, one, I was framed, and two, I was lied upon by a member of the cabinet. He says that. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. In the United States, in Britain, in any civilized democracy, there would have been a pocket of crime, there would have been an inquiry, and somebody would have had to have left office. Go to Barbados. This has happened. Y'all didn't know this? You're busy up there. You're real busy. Because something as serious as this happens in Barbados. And life goes on as normal. And we talk about how we, but not we, some people say, oh, we with the government. I'm going to tell you some stories about the government. I really wish that I could come here and discuss present, Cape Verde, the large and the pleasant side of Barbados that you like, but the business decision has to be serious. I have to tell you of the country that you left behind, and I have to tell you that it's now a different country. Now, I was on to the government's relationship with the police service. You know by now that there's something about Barbados which the government called the peace program. Anybody who requires me to speak slowly on this, please ask me to speak slowly, because this has never happened before in Barbados. Government established an agency to identify criminals. And I'm not talking about people who steal chocolates from Collins Limited. I am talking about men who had confessed to being gunmen, possibly murderers. And rather than employing the police service to go after these men, the government saying, no, let's enter into a peace program and let us pay these men to keep the peace. You heard this for the first time? You're happy in New York. Well, we're not so happy in Barbados. The government has been paying, identifying gunmen, self-confessed gunmen, men who have possibly committed murder, identifying them and saying, look, perhaps the way to do this, to stop them from shooting people, is to come up with something called a peace program. P-A-C-E, not P-I-A-C-E. Not men who take peace of somebody's life. A government saying they want peace. And I say to you that in some cases they were getting 8,000.
They can be bigger.
4 men, you're happy in New York, you know. 4 men appeared on the Friday edition of the Nation newspaper. When you all used to get the Nation newspaper here, it used to be the Friday one of this, understand? The 2 most popular. When the Nation put them on one of the 2 most popular, 4 big and back rocky packagers saying we want our money. This happened in your country. They were saying that the government is in breach of contract. Y'all don't believe this? We don't believe it happened either. But it happened in your beloved country. When you got onto the Panama jet, you would never have thought that this would happen in your country. That 4 men, young men, well dressed too, came on the front page of the paper and said, government is in breach, we want our money. So that they were confessing to having been involved in criminal activity. Very soon. But that's what was saying then. And there are a lot of theories as to what they were doing with the money. We're not going to get into that. But here was the government entering into a formal relationship with criminals in Barbados. Men involved in criminal wrongdoing under something called a peace program. They're recording this, so I'm not going to talk about Good Friday. We're going to speak about that after when we're having Christmas. I'm not going to talk about that. Because that is so ultimately embarrassing to the country that I don't really wish to embarrass them. But the point I'm making is that this government used public funds to enter into relationships with criminal elements at the expense of the Barbados Police Service. And this is why I say at the expense of the Barbados Police Service. Because it is known now that government has not been entirely supportive of the Barbados Police Service. There's evidence of that, and I will demonstrate it to you. Sometime last year, during the budget debate, which is around March every year, the Prime Minister of your beloved country promised police officers who were constables, who were not promoted, 20 years of man is in the police service and he's still a constable. In your country, you cannot have a police service with high morale if a man sticks in that police service for 20 years and does not receive a promotion. He's a constable. And I suppose government felt that the time had come to promote them. So if you had 20 years as a constable, you receive this automatic promotion to senior constable. I'm going to say something else about that because that is not that. And with that promotion from constable to senior constable, they promised them that there would be an increase in pay. When the St. James North by election came along a few months ago, it was raised on our platform. I raised it on our platform. Out jumped the Prime Minister. Oh, we're going to do it next month. It was supposed to happen in May, right? We're now in July. Government still has not kept the promise that there are constables in the Barbados Police Service who have served 32 years without promotion, and they're still waiting on the increased pay that government promised them last year. And it gets worse, New York. It gets worse. I wonder if there's everything I should say, but I'll say it. Government has this way of using money to do what we knew in the colonial days, divide and rule. Why not keep the promise to promote all the constables to senior constable and to give them the additional money? Government has implemented a scheme in which men who work in plain clothes, CID, Criminal Investigation Department, plain clothes men, have received an increase of $1,900 a month. And men who work in uniform will not get a cent more. We went through, I said earlier that we signed all state decree. And in colonial times, the colonial power was known for divide and rule. And that is how government is related to the Barbados Police Service, divide and rule. So you take out the plainclothes men, detectives, pay them $1,900 extra, and demoralized and humiliated those in uniform. Now the police officers are technically, when the crime occurs, the first man on the scene, uniform man. And then the plainclothes men come in afterwards because they're the detectives, they're the investigators. So that they work together. But here is the government coming up with this scheme to divide and rule, to separate them. So there must be some ill feelings now. See any man sitting in the car, uniform man in there with him. How are they to work together? When one knows that the other one is getting $1,900 a month, and possibly he is junior to the uniform man. He may be a constable. And the man next to him may be a sergeant or a station sergeant. But he's getting $1,900 more. So that they are undermining the Barbados Police Service. Undermining the Barbados Police Service. Rather than come up with a scheme to modernize the police service, because our police service needs to be modernized. We should not be living in a modern democracy in which promotion, I don't mind saying this gentleman is president, in which promotion in a police service historically has been largely dependent on who the cow like he lick and who he don't like he kick. I don't mind saying this to your president, that a lot of police officers used to be promoted because somebody likes them. And a lot of competence was found because somebody did not like them. And that is not a modern police service, that's a colonial police service. And we have been saying for a long time that the police service needs to be modernized, that there needs to be some guarantee of promotion. You can't be in the system for 30, 35 years and never having been promoted while still being in the system. You must have been some credit to the system. And you're 35 years in the system, and the father does 12 years, and you salute him, he's a sergeant, and you're like, something is wrong. And that is what the government ought to have done with the police service. Modernize it, pay them better, which is to say, pay them more money, and give some guarantee that it will be a career in which there's some fulfillment, in which there's an opportunity to be promoted. The police service in Barbados is largely demoralized because government has not seen it fit to pay proper attention to the modernization, the building of a proper police service. So that's where we are with government and the police service. Largely ill-treated. And don't forget the peace program. So you're ill-treated the police service, but you pay certain members of communities money, as they say, to keep the peace. That's why they call it a peace program. Please don't shoot anybody this month, and we'll pay you $8,000. That's fine.
Is that acceptable?
That's fine, Miss Banner. That's the country we left behind. So when you entered the Banner, when you were crying, we now crying down there down. We still shedding tears. I'll tell you about that. I'll tell you about that. The police union, they're fighting for this increase that was promised since last year. As I said, it was supposed to be paid in May, they didn't pay. June, didn't pay. July, haven't paid it. We don't know what will happen. But the police service in Barbados is demoralized. So I'm going to begin this exercise by telling you that just about every Sunday in Barbados now, there is a shooting at midday after the government has chosen to empower, enfranchise, enable criminals. What do you expect? There was a violent one at Perkins gas station in Barbados said almost blown off midday. Yeah. You didn't know this. You have to be here. I'm sorry you cannot hear me use that. Curtains gas station. He blown off Sunday. And it wasn't him alone. More of a pumping gas. He get shot too. Hit smash it. Sunday, man. Sunday. 2 Sundays ago. Sunday at Montgomery Park. Killed. Today. Eden Lodge just down the street. Shot again. And I'm sure you saw the videos of the man. They did. On 2 men on a motorcycle, one with this AR-15. The man down there knows what's an AR-15. Rather, you know what's an AR-15. A big rifle. A big rifle on the back of a motorcycle. And he's riding all through Barbados. A big Sunday afternoon, when we used to be walking home from church. He is riding a motorcycle through Barbados. He's a soldier, but he's getting $8,000 a month, though. Probably getting $8,000 a month. And when they don't get it on the front page of the Nation on Friday, we want our money. Well, we want the taxpayers' money. So that is what is happening in Barbados. Government has a responsibility. We say that government has breached its responsibility to Barbadians. Again, by empowering members of the criminal element and maltreating the members of the police service. And I say to you that the relationship, the larger and general relationship between the government and the Barbados Police Service is not a good relationship, except that government is trying to retrieve that relationship by divide and rule. Give the CID man $1,900 more and the uniform name of stuff. And you expect to have a police service that you can call one police service that works for the good of the country. But that is how this government is. This government is very transactional. This government believes that every problem can be solved. Bring some money and solve the problem. And that's why we had the theme, you know. Morality over money. Not that money is not important, but in the spending of money, there must be some moral. When the government is spending the taxpayers' money, attach some moral purpose to it. Be fair to people. And I'm saying that they're being unfair to the Barbados Police Service. Now, they've accused us of not saying what should be done. For the last 2 years, we have been telling the government that they have the power to go to Parliament and pass laws. There's a legislative objective. This government has not been using it. This government has not been using its majority in Parliament to pass laws for the peace and order in Barbados. I say to you what you probably do not know, that a lot of the men, it was discovered by the police that a lot of the men who were committing murder, they were on bail for having committed earlier murders. So you would have had men, possibly, on the Sunday, who shot and killed somebody, and when the police found them, it was discovered that they were on bail for murder that they had committed perhaps the year before. And I told the Parliament, look, this is untenable. And I said it publicly. We held a press conference, and I said, you must pass a new bail act. You cannot have a situation in a country in which a man murders somebody, whether it's Sunday at midday or Wednesday at midnight, and when he is held, it is discovered that a court had given him bail for an earlier murder. So he had his trial on the first murder, and while he was out on bail, he went and killed somebody else. No, that is not a human being who has any regard for civil society. That is not. But that's the Barbados in which you're living. And when the Attorney General brought the new bail act to Parliament, he confessed and said, look, I am bringing this here in response to a call made by the leader of the opposition. Not boasting about anything, go on YouTube or watch it. You know that when government brought the new bail act, it did very little more, if anything more, than the existing bail act. Before this, the first bail act, or the bail act that they revoked, was passed, I think, around 2000. Before that bail act, everybody in this room knows that if you kill somebody in Barbados, Panam generation, if you kill somebody, you could not get bail. You were up the road. And if the trial took 3 years, you're up the road. But the government passed the bail act around 2000 and said, okay, you can now get bail for murder. Right? So they started giving these men bail for murder. So a fellow commits murder, trial doesn't come up, he gets bail, and he goes and does another one. I say, no. Make the bail law stick. A man should not commit a murder, come out and do another murder. Why? Laws are made by men in Parliament, and you can pass the law to prevent that kind of thing. When they brought the new law to Parliament, it did not do anything. It did not strengthen the hands of the community in terms of depriving these men from receiving bail. It did nothing. We asked the question, why? Why is this government so soft on crime? Why is this government so reluctant to pass laws to control criminal wrongdoing in Barbados? Why? Because it is our view that the government is soft on crime. Whatever is the reason, welcome, Father. Whatever is the reason, we are accusing this government of being soft on crime. We are accusing this government of demonstrating a marked reluctance to curb and control criminal wrongdoing in Barbados. That is what we say. And we don't say it because it is sweet politics. We say based on the evidence. I told you about the peace program. I told you about the bail act, which they passed. And although they passed that bail act until last year, you are still getting situations in which men who are proved to be killer shooters have been out on bail for earlier offenses. So the new bail act has not solved the problem. What is the government going to do? Well, we asked the government, they say we don't come with any solutions. We have asked the government, and I said it on the conferences, the government needs to pass anti-gang legislation. Let me explain to you, those of you who do not know what anti-gang legislation basically will do. You know, when the boys ride around the cycles and shoot somebody, the police will go and find the shooter. And we now know that there are gangs in Barbados. In other words, there's organized crime. We know that. And we know that quite often the shooter has received instructions precisely. But they find the shooter, they have the DNA evidence, they have the fingerprint evidence, and you charge him. He goes up to prison. Problem is not solved because somebody gave the order. And that somebody will find somebody else to do the next murder. Problem not solved because it is organized crime. It is gang crime. And therefore, you do like the other countries in the Caribbean, Bahamas, Bermuda, Jamaica, I think Trinidad and St. Lucia, all pass anti-gang legislation. So that you're dealing not only with the perpetrator, you're dealing not only with the man who pulled the trigger, but when you get him, and I will tell you this, and he will tell you, they talk, you know. These boys talk. They talk. We used to be, of course, saying all kinds of things, but they talk. And the police will find out who is at the head of the stream. And that is what anti-gang legislation is about. It is intended to dismantle the gang, to go for the person who gave the order. I have asked this government repeatedly, pass anti-gang legislation. Go to the head of the stream, as we say in Barbados. Go to the person who gave the order. Go to the person at the head of the organization, because it is a criminal organization. Everybody in Barbados now knows that these are no random acts. There are criminal enterprises in Barbados who are at war with each other. And the bosses don't meet in the road and fight like Billy the Kid. They send people to shoot each other. So we in Barbados just picking up the shooter, putting them up in prison, and the war is continuing. Because there's some hidden face that is giving the instructions, so that when a man is caught and the police are catching them. So you would think that if the police catching them, problem is solved. It is not solved. It is not solved because there is organized crime. Pass anti-gang legislation. What has the government done? Nothing. They have not passed. They have refused to pass it. Although somebody whispered in my ear on Tuesday in Parliament, I'm going to pass the anti-gang legislation. No names, man. That's not my natural voice. We have not passed it. The Parliament has not passed it. The votes that have 29-1 still not passed it. So we have no anti-gang legislation in Barbados. I have asked the government as well in Parliament, even when it was on that side. I have asked them in a press conference repeatedly to amend the laws in Barbados to make provision as done here in this great United States of America. Degrees of homicide. First degree murder, second degree murder, third degree murder. I think you have fourth as well. And then manslaughter, and you come down the line. It can be done. It can be done. And of course, first degree would be the most severe, the most heinous. I don't want to offend your sensibility, but sometimes you go in a Caribbean country, in an act of revenge, a man held a baby up in front of his family and shot. Hey, now that's first degree. That's first degree. And somebody who is charged under that category cannot expect to come to our hall because he has to go to prison and await his trial. No bail. So that when you establish the degrees of murder, in some of those degrees, if the police advised by the Director of Public Prosecution so advises, you will charge according to the degrees. And the degree for which you are charged will be determined by the severity of the offense. If it is the heinous thing, like in Britain and I think here as well, if you shoot a police officer, it is presumed that you are intending, you are hitting at the very heart of the state, the survival of the state. You go first degree. You don't come to the Townhall meeting. You go in prison and sit down and wait. And the other countries have that law. Why can't we do it in Barbados? And the government continues to refuse to do it. Why? Why? These are the questions we're asking the government. I'm sorry to come up here and give you this bad news, this blessed Sunday evening. But I'm begging you, let your voices be heard in support of just causes evil from this citizen. I hope that you're seeing the videos. Our minds inundated with the videos. Every killing in Barbados, now we see it on video. We used to hear about it. I don't know if y'all saw the whole town one. That both hurt me. Didn't know the little fella, but I went to the funeral. To this day, it hurts me. It's on video. A man killed a boy, hit him with a stone, knocked him back, and when he was down on his back, right here, died instantly. So we've seen it on video. This is not our imagination. That is the anatomy of crime in Barbados. That is how crime is playing itself out. Gil Scott-Heron, famous American artist, said the revolution will not be televised. in relation to Barbados, the revolution of crime is being televised. We are seeing it. We see it. We see the men get off the motorcycles and spray the bullets and kill. Y'all don't get the WhatsApp videos. Look, Miss Dr. Ali next to you was sending you some. We see it in Barbados. There is an awareness, and that is why when we had the Gazette meeting down there before this meeting, we were discussing how Barbados has become. That on our way here, we used to hear my brother and all used to tell me, oh, when you walk down certain streets in New York, you get him mugged. First time I heard the word mug was when he came to New York. I didn't know the word mug. But whether that's the reality now, our delegation, President World said it earlier today, we feel safe here now than we feel in Barbados, and this is not an exaggeration. Most Barbadians will not walk up Broad Street at 6:30 on any evening of the week, ma'am. That is a fact. They killed one out in the bandstand a few Sundays ago. I did not add that one. I haven't come with a litany of woe. I've come to tell you the truth about Barbados that you love. People are closing themselves up in their houses at dusk time. That's what your grandmother used to call it, dusk time. You know what's dusk time? 6 o'clock. People used to lay down on Sunday afternoons, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoons when the girls getting their hair plaited for school the next morning. It's like door open. People are afraid to do that now. Ladies in their houses are vulnerable at midday as they are at midnight. Welcome to Barbados. Welcome to Barbados, in which the government has not met its responsibility to curb crime in the country, in which we have a country where the government pays admitted criminal wrongdoers $8,000 a month not to commit crime. And the scheme has failed. Obviously, it has failed. It must fail. It must fail. We have had a situation in which they took the ministry away from, not him, the fellow from the city, Mr. Lane. I give them the respect. There's a ministry called the Ministry of Crime Prevention. Y'all hear these things for the first time? I came to talk culture and nice topics and about Pudding and South and how sweet life was in Barbados. So you got me here telling all these truths. Burn your heart. It's not easy there. It is not easy there. The government has failed Barbadians in terms, I'm coming to Lane. Mr. Lane was relieved of his responsibilities. And this is not to disparage the young man. He had a bit of a problem with the police. And they took away the ministry from him and gave it to another minister. Crime prevention was the portfolio. Crime prevention was the name of the ministry. And the new minister who took the new portfolio of crime prevention, his first order of business, he said, well, I am going to meet with the gang leaders. Welcome to Barbados. He is meeting with the police. Welcome, sir. He's not meeting with the pastors and the priests. He is not meeting with the superintendent of prison. He is going to meet with the gang leaders. He is going to meet with the same persons against whom we should have had a gang legislation. He should have gone with the police commissioner and the senior members of the police service to say, look, these are the men. But the government knows who the men are because the minister said I'm going to meet with them. So Dr. Allen and I don't know who the gang leaders are, but the minister seems to know. And it gets worse. Reverend, and I'm going, this one is for you. 2 Sundays ago in Barbados, the deputy prime minister said, in relation to crime, because there was this really bad one, Sunday, a really bad shooting. Young man at Medave, Montgomery is shot by 2 men carrying a large rifle. And she seeks to give her explanation. She said, well, up to that point, 25 men had been shot and killed this year. Or 25 men had been killed, most of them shot. Your deputy prime minister said, Well, of the 25 who were shot and killed, I know personally 20 of them. Welcome to Barbados. Mr. Dujon is going to Canada. Please travel safely. Thank you very much. So that this is the government's response to rampant criminal wrongdoing, murderous wrongdoing. 25 men are killed. Your deputy prime minister says, well, I do 20 of the 25 personally. Derek Allen don't know any of them. Andrea World doesn't know any of them. I certainly don't. But your deputy prime minister? And then she went farther, Father. She said, Barbadians have to understand that a lot of the drug lords support the communities. They provide shoes and pay bills and all kinds of things, and we have to understand that. And the church, and she started turning on the church, Father, and say the church is not doing anything. That's what it is. These are senior government officials in Barbados. It's doing words of condemnation against the church and upholding in praise what they call gang leaders or drug lords, whatever term. That is the state of government in Barbados. That reflects how the government is related not only to the police service, but how it is related to peace-loving, upstanding citizens in Barbados. That government official reserves criticism for the church. Criticism and condemnation, and gives positive and favorable explanation to a relationship between drug lords and the communities in Barbados. And you tell me that you have a legitimate government, and you tell me that this government is a government that should survive the next election. And I will tell you what is this government's main strategy in trying to survive the next election as a government. Entertainment. Watch your videos, entertainment. This government has failed the country in terms of job provision. They've been telling a lot of lies about 6% unemployed. Let me tell you this, New York. They both say that 6 hotels are being constructed simultaneously. Call home and ask how many Bajans are involved on the job sites. We have buildings that are going up in Barbados now. A lot of the companies are foreign companies, fine, but they are importing labor. And a lot of those laborers are living in containers and other makeshift apartments provided by the employers. That gentleman, I talked to him last night, and he worked on the Hilton. Opened in 1966. Whenever a project was going up in Barbados, it used to be Bajans on the work site. Indigo, which is the former Caribbean, I drive by there every morning. I look at them and I cock my ear and I try to hear the accent. Spanish. Down on the West Coast, Colombians, I have nothing against, because I'm speaking to an immigrant community. So we have no difficulty with labor migrating to another country. But a lot of our young people are not being given the opportunity to work. And that explains a lot of the criminal activity in Barbados. And a lot of them who may have the opportunity to work are being underpaid, for God's sake. They are young, they are children. I'm not going to call them young people. They are children in Barbados pumping gas and taking home less than $300 a week. Why? With children. So that the young men, 28, 35 years old, they're not working for that. They're not working for that. They might see a lady driving a car and then she take off the ticket because the government tells her to take off the ticket, and they can see that the lady is there. They go to rob her. You heard about the ticket legislation too, didn't you? To divert people's attention away from the real issue of crime. It has nothing to do with criminal wrongdoing in Barbados. A lot of young ladies protect themselves behind the dark tin, so that when they're driving by certain neighborhoods, the men who are not working cannot see who is in there. That's how people protect themselves, not only behind their houses, but behind the tip on their car windows. And this government has told the people, take it off. And if you don't take it off, they will fine you $500. So innocent people are being criminalized in Barbados, while the criminals are being rewarded with large sums of money every month. Taxpayers' money, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, and $8,000 a month. But people want to tell me that this is a government that should survive the next election. They should not. But let me tell you how your money is being spent in Barbados. Entertainment. Entertainment. To distract. Entertainment is now the new diversion, the feel-good factor. I told you how we came up. I told you the culture in which we came up. A culture of discipline, commitment to hard work, knowing that life for us, life for poor people was never easy. We made good of it. We understood how to create our cocoons of pleasure. Short-term quite often, but we are hard-working generation. Hard-working generation. School wasn't easy. I never supported the flogging of children. We went through that. We went through that. A lot of us didn't want to go to church on many Sundays. Come, I want to go to the pastor. In the end, the values that instilled did us some good, but it was a highly regimented and disciplined life. It was not an easy life. But we made something of it. That was our culture. That is how we came along. That is what we were taught. Hard work, commitment to a cause, upholding a cause, using education not only to uplift yourself, but to uplift an entire society. What this government has now done with young people is that this government is telling young people that their life, greatest objective, fulfillment in life is to have a party. And so millions of dollars are being sent to the National Cultural Foundation to give the young people parties. To give the young people parties as the new distraction away from the real issues that confront them. The issue of unemployment is a real issue facing young Barbadians. The prospect that they will never own a house. The reality that a lot of them are fleeing Barbados, and when they talk about fleeing Barbados, I'm talking about the most educated, because they go into Cato, getting degrees, and they're leaving. They're going to Canada. They're now no longer willing to invest their energy in Barbados. They are fleeing to Canada and taking those skills to Canada. And the ones who are staying behind, the government's relationship with them gives them a party. The government's position, well, all y'all are working. A party. And it used to be around crop over, but now not only crop over, every opportunity for revelry. Jump up. You see how they behave? You see the videos? I saw one last week. Father, you can leave now if you want, but I have something to say. There is a video on the WhatsApp groups going around, and I couldn't believe it was Barbados. A group of young women in what looks like bikinis. It's a ritual. It has become a ritual. It's a ritual of sex and violence. And they are up against barbed wire. And they are bending over. Father, you can take it. And it is something they do. Something they do. Put him back. You forget that word? Put him back. And it fascinated me, not in a good way, by the way, but I'm saying, what is this ritual all about? These expressions of sex, and there is always a connection between sex and fire. Look at the dances, and look at how the men treat the women in these ritual dances, and it is violent. Because they jump up in the air, land on the woman, and then they go behind her, and the other word, fathers, they juke it. They juke it. And the women bending over and then juking too. And it is this ritual. Every day. And it has gone into the primary schools. Did you see the video last year of these innocent little children? And I'm not going to call the name of the school, but you all used to talk about town schools. It wasn't a town school, you know. It was a school in the country of innocent little children. I'm not going to tell you afterwards when we having breaks. I will tell you the school, but I don't want the others to know. And Barbadians were so shocked. Y'all have more time or you ran out of time? Barbadians were so shocked by it that everybody went into. We were repulsed by it. There was great national revulsion. People could not believe that 10-year-old children were doing the joking. Father, forgive me. The joking and the mooching back. Little boys or innocent children. Our children used to be our babies until when they left primary school. That behavior has gone into the primary schools. But along came our self-righteous prime minister, because the whole country is shocked now. Oh, let us have 5 minutes of prayer. And she was last seen in some yard up in Bashar, I believe it was. And she and 3 men up there with their heads bowed, and they say they pray. They say they pray against this lewdness, because the whole country was in shock. So she decided to jump on the bandwagon. I'm in shock too. Let us have 5 minutes of prayer. And she is up in Bashar or wherever it is in her constituency, the head bowed. The microphones never picked up what she was saying, but she claimed she was praying. You know, a few hours later, the same prime minister was at a Laro court. Joking. Y'all never saw the video? The same prime minister is on the video. I'm not telling lies. She can't sue me for defamation. Within hours, she was up there with one of the custodians behind her. Joking. Forgive me, Father. She was joking too. The hypocrisy, though. The hypocrisy, so that when I talk about the government and its relationship to a culture, the influence that a government has on a culture, that when you have high-ranking government officials praising drug lords and condemning the church, and when you have another high-ranking government official condemning little children for joking and hours later you joking too. What is the message? These are influential people. Government officials, high government officials are people we don't understand it because we can see through them. But a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old, and I go as far as to say a 25-year-old, don't have our sense of maturity. They don't have our sense of values. They don't have our fortitude. They don't have our experience. They cannot repel these influences in the way that we can see through it. But they see these glamorous, high-ranking government officials, and that is the influence. And they joke it. You got this year's Calypso. And they joke it. And so that is how the government is relating to young people in Barbados. Give them a pet. That is the new culture in Barbados. It doesn't matter if you're unemployed. It doesn't matter if you're underpaid. It doesn't matter if you will lose the little job you have next month or next week. I'm going to give you a pet. So come up and jump. And that's the culture. That is how government is relating to young people in Barbados. We call it diversion. We call it distraction. And that has become the government's relationship with the culture of Barbados, with the people of Barbados. Now, what do we as a Democratic Labour Party propose to do? I have said to the government repeatedly, there are 4 broad approaches to deal with crime in Barbados. 4 broad approaches. Either they have heard and not understood, or they don't listen at all. The first one is the military option. By that, you have to strengthen your police service. You have to respect them. You have to pay them properly. You have to give every police officer a fair chance of promotion, you have to raise morale within the police service. You have to turn your attention away from the criminal element, stop empowering and enabling the criminal element, and do that to the Barbados police service. It's not rocket science, you know. The other option is the legislative option. You have to impress Barbados that as a government with 29 to 1 in the House, that you are interested in passing serious laws in Barbados. They're not serious, you know. And there are many Barbadians who feel, based on the evidence, that the government is protecting criminal elements in Barbados. Because the men who are shooting those guns on Sunday, from Sunday to Sunday, they didn't import. Because it's a very expensive thing to import. None of them poor boys who shooting and losing their lives on the highways of that country that we love so much. Not one of them, as they say, has the money to import the AR-15 rifle. Who bring them in? Who is at the head of the stream? Who are the ones who will be found in the past of the gun legislation? Who are the ones who will not get bail if you pass the new law to create degrees of homicide? So that when a man is charged for the first degree, he knows that he ain't coming to this Townhall meeting. He will be at Glenberry or does as it is now. And that's the legislative agenda. The government of Barbados has failed the country in terms of its legislative agenda. Never before have we had a parliament with 29 to 1, and government refuses to use the power of that 29 to 1. They're soft on crime. And ask this government, why are you so soft on crime? Ask them. And the third approach, I've mentioned the military approach, I've mentioned the legislative approach. The third approach is the socio-economic. I have demonstrated to you that this government is doing a few things that really should not be doing. That there are too many people in Barbados who will not get a job because there are too many businesses that are excluding them. And the government is boasting of the exclusion. And all these buildings going up, and our carpenters and masons and steel vendors can't find a job on them because the labor is coming with them. So our people are being disadvantaged by unfair labor practices. And then, of course, there's the cultural approach. And I hope we've demonstrated to you that this government has gone morally adrift in its refusal to relate to young people in a way that is wholesome. It's fine to develop an entertainment industry. We support that. But along with an entertainment industry must be the development of the arts. You agree with me? You must develop the arts in Barbados. Folk singing has died. Dance is dying. Drumming is dying. We're not happy to see that and cattle. Happy to see from the Hainesville group. Those things that you, when you stepped on the Panama and you left behind, those cultural aspects, ma'am, have disappeared and are disappearing. We had Sing Out Barbados, Wilson Hill, Ellerslie, Shalom singers from the Catholic Church. I could name all the folk singing groups, Silver Tones, yes. They have disappeared. They have disappeared from the landscape. All aspects that stabilize Barbados. And I use the term moral balance. The things that were at the institutions that were at the foundation of our social stability, the church, the school. They allow the children now to go to school as they like. Standards gone. Children going into school now as they like. The school year is now starting with carnival. Yes. Our secondary schools are beginning, the school year is beginning with bands coming in and the children do. That's how the school year is starting. We started with the national anthem and the hymns and the prayer and so on. Our standards have fallen. Our standards have dropped. I think it's gone on long enough. I think there are solutions. I think there are solutions to resolve this social and political crisis in Barbados. There is nothing, there is no man-made problem that cannot also be solved by humankind. There is no human problem that cannot also be solved by humankind. And when you hear them telling you nonsense about, man, the problem is too deep, you can't reverse it. We were taken there by human beings, and it is our responsibility in New York to reverse from the abyss, from the septic, the social septic that this government has created around our children. Because I always say, you know, this political exercise is not for us. It's not for us. We are the mere custodians, we are the mere guardians. This is for the children. What we do and what we try to do and attempt to do is not for us. You're talking about 10, 15, 20, 25, 50 years on. If we're still here, God bless us. But some of us may not be, but we have to do for the children what our parents did for us. Because if our parents did not make provisions for us, we would not be here now. So that it becomes our moral and civic and social and national responsibility to leave a better world for these children. And this government is not leaving a better world for these children. This government has breached its responsibility to Barbados. That is what it has done. And that is why Sunday is no longer a sacred day. That is why we began and that is why we end. Sunday used to be a sacred day. We lost another one today. And 2 Sundays ago, we lost one. And 4 Sundays ago, or 5 or 6 Sundays ago, in a station in the morning, instant Philippa curtains, man's head blown off. Sunday. They no longer wait until 3 a.m. to kill people. Sunday. And so my travels through New York now feel safer than my travels through Barbados and call their families and ask them. Because they'll say, he came up here and he talks on politics. But I'm telling you the truth. Traversing Barbados now feels unsafe at midday and it does at midnight. And I have come here to New York and I feel safer. And ask any of the members of what I call this pilgrimage to New York, this necessary pilgrimage, to engage in a reunion with you, to exchange our experiences. And that's why when we meet, it is such a great pleasure. We don't talk about the present. When I had my Grisette's reunion, we talked about the past. That shaped us. We talked about our foundation. That is what shaped us. What are these children going to talk about? 15 years from now, 20 years from now, when we meet here in New York or Toronto, what are they going to talk about? The Sunday murders? We have to change that. As I said, it is not for us, but let us change it. New York, thank you very, very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Maria. I understand we're going to entertain questions.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is.
Here, Sam has an application. Oh, you don't want to.
Good evening. Thorne is the leader of the session. My name is Sam Thorne. I took my day this evening time to come here to the Townhall meeting to address and ask a question with regard to Barbados. You spoke about the crime. I am part of the diaspora here. I am a very strong proponent of the historic rights. I am coming to you and asking your question this with regard to the new constitution that is being written in Barbados. Where are we placing our diaspora rights? I've said all the time, we come here, we have elected officials, prime ministers, both parties come here and say, oh yes, you're going to give us the right to vote. But we don't have enough votes, so the other side will knock back it's in the etc. There's no reason now that we in diaspora should not have the right to vote in any new constitution that is being enacted. It's time we cannot kick it down the road anymore. We spoke about the remittances that go into the treasury. It comes in a line. We have to wear that. We have taxes, we build houses, everything, taxes. My only question is, will you in any coming in administration give us the right to exercise the vote? Barbados is one of the oldest constitutions of democracy in the blessed hemisphere. And it should be mature enough. I repeat, mature enough to allow us to vote. Afghanistan had a democracy for 20 years. And people in the cave for 20 years were able to vote here in New York, back in Kabul. So why is it there's always this fence and storytelling to deprive us in the diaspora of our right to vote? Will you support that, Mr. Thorne? I know you had a commission of the community. You, if the Democratic administration or your government or any, will you be supportive of us in the diaspora having the right to rest?
Oh. Let me ask Sam first. Sam, this is not an answer based on fear. This is an answer based on fear. I think the dialogue needs to take place. I think for a very activist diaspora, of which you're a representative, and you've been preaching this for a while, I think it is a discussion that has to take place nationally between people in the diaspora and Barbadians. There's a lot of fear at home. There's a lot of fear at home, obviously, if a government is entrenched. A government always fears being replaced by the diaspora. But this is a government which is not shy about bringing in people from across the Caribbean, incentivizing them, rewarding them with jobs and God knows whatever, and possibly putting them on the electoral list. I am saying to you, Sam, that I am watching that. I am watching the possibility that migrant labor in Barbados may find itself in the polling booth by a government which is resistant to the prospect of a Barbadian coming back home to vote. And that is why I say that it represents a double standard. And that is why I'm saying to you, Sam, it is a discussion that has to take place. I have proposed before that maybe it should be conditional. That's a personal view, not a national view, that if a man owns property in Barbados, man or woman owns property in Barbados, paying taxes, possibly employing somebody there, why not? Should he be entertained? If a person, based on residency, we know there are lots of Barbadians, 3 months here, 3 months there, 3 months. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, what we lawyers call ordinarily resident. That person is ordinarily resident in Barbados. So, Sam, I think it's a discussion, and I thank you for starting it. I thank you for your activism on it. I think it is a worthy discussion, and I think it is a discussion that must take place between the naval string and the diaspora. And you know what I mean by that. People who have their emotions invested in the plate of their naval strength, are you going to shut them out? I don't think you can. I think you must enter dialogue. You want it in the new constitution. Are you aware that this government went republic 4 years ago and up to now have not passed the new Republican constitution? They're not. They don't intend to do it. And you know why they don't intend to do it? Because ultimate power in Barbados now reposes in one person. And while that one person, and I'm not going to make from your question, while that one person is exercising ultimate power, a constitution becomes irrelevant. But I come back to your original question. I think it is a worthy discussion, and I think it is a discussion that must be given. Thank you very much. And I will just add this. You know, an American, any part of the world, can vote. Can vote. And of course, that is economic and financial. And that is for tax purposes. Because if an American, any part of the world can vote, the American government can tax you any part of the world. So, Sam, if you pursue it, there may be conditions.
Well,
There may be conditions.
well, there's nothing going to have the condition of
But the discussion should begin. The mere fact, sorry, Crossing, the mere fact that this audience is here this evening, isn't that an expression of emotional investment in our country?
Correct. So
We are
we're,
here as Barbadians, all of us in this room are here as Barbadians.
but I came here because I understand the situation here. That if the constitution is not done yet, it's not too late. To have this, I saw people came in here and they were talking all around the back. There was supposed to be some kind of conversation. That was not a conversation. People have been talking because it really was needless. But I'm saying, you did the Thorne Commission for local governance, right? Which can also be enshrined in any constitution,
Yes.
because you were to take over development involvement, you were to put it on in, and you live next door, you don't know who built that the building there and put on the community. We want input as well here in the diaspora. Don't tell us that we determine first state and then and be represent, and then come back and all kind of stuff like that. I'm saying it is time. There's no reason. There's no rhyme or reason. So when you say people put up this box say, oh, it's fraudulent. You didn't tell me it's fraudulent, but they took my passport for you at the council and set it down and give you my money. So there's no reason why we cannot have this discourse and have a serious conversation and we need. And I'm telling you, the diaspora is tired of it. They're ready. It's all over. You have the conversation, and it's all over again, but nothing seems to happen. You got 29 for one. Mr. Thorne will be asking for support that the diaspora have a right to vote and that be enshrined in the Constitution. That's what we ask for. You want parity. Thank you. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good evening. Again. Good afternoon. Again, welcome to New York.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your experience in New York. And I think you enjoyed New York.
Yeah.
But my question, you have spoken up the bar on my question. Because my question was going to be the same thing as what you just said. Because we pay taxes in Barbados, we pay land taxes. And then again, we pay workers to cut the grass and whatever, and it comes on the tax bill. And I know in America, people in Barbados that went home, goes to the embassy and cast a vote. It goes to the Barbados embassy for America and cast their vote. Why we can't do the same thing, paying the same taxes as them? And my other question to you, so you answer more.
Yes. Yes.
My question is, with everything going on like this, we have a governor general of Barbados. Why? I've been saying, Philip, if there's so much action going on in Barbados, why can't she get involved or her office get involved and implement these changes in Barbados?
President.
I'm sorry. She's the president. So what is she saying in behalf of everybody getting sued and stuff? And that's something on. And my last very question is, I know that I was going to ask earlier, the criminals that are doing these shootings, what is the real nationality? Because everything speaks to our organization of the United States. St. Vincent and St. Lucia don't have to have a visa anymore. The Caribbean, even though to but if you come in birthright ticket and come in belly out. You know, from eternity change back. What do you think about everything changing as far as Barbadians doing criminals and these people that doing these shootings in Barbados, are they really the city of Barbados, people coming in with guns, because Barbados has 3 ports of entry: the Old Steeville, Grand Adams, and Port St. Charles. So that means immigration is not doing their business. Immigration is not doing their job. Money, taxpayer money going up every year, immigration. And what are they doing for entries on yachts, entries on plane, entries on seas? What are they doing? Because these guns don't make it Barbados. Years ago, my mom told me back in the world, or whatever, they used to make them about these plantations, put these in there no more. One is these ARR stuff coming in from all over the world to Barbados. We only have 12.7. I don't correct me. The population of Barbados is 500,000 yet? 300. So if you're killing 2 people every day, that is down to 2 million. I want, and when we get home, we go to Parliament and let them know Barbadians in New York are Brooklyn Queens, because I got the 2 Brooklyn Queens. To hear every day about killings. And first one in Kirkland, my family live up there. We want to know who bring it, if the other people that selling the law and your mother telling you, tell you come back next Sunday, come home, but she in the backyard. If those people bring it, the guns and pay the young people, St. Peter's, Stephen, let us know and go. Because unless somebody comes to take over Barbados for the next 2 years before the year, 200,000 people going to police stop me. Barbados. I'm really upset. I'm really crying to see that my little buddy in Barbados. We used to plant sugarcane and sell around. No, the little land I got it. My nephew asked me if he could plant stuff. So we call that weed on it. No. Rock hard, Barbados. Do not plant it. You can't plant some sugarcane. Let me suck. Don't catch that in it, because they're going to choose something to live on it. But I'm really on a very serious note. What is the population of the arrest in Barbados? Nationality wise, we're going to put a curve on that. We're going to put a curve on that. We'll go back home and let us know because our voice matters. Our voice matters here in New York, in Chicago, in Washington, D.C., wherever we are. We is a loyal veteran. I like to be loyal veteran. Who are being raised from the sun, you never know. Thank you for that.
Your name again? Ali.
I'm already
All 3 Ali. Thank you very much. Just let me say that the head of state does not and cannot get involved with political matters. She's a ceremonial head of state. Not executive. You asked something else. No, I don't. Definitely not. Definitely not. But I don't pretend expertise where I have none. To be honest with you, I don't know how we done stuff, and I don't know who did it. But I suspect that there are people in Barbados who know. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Thank you very much. Oh,
Good evening, Mr. Thorne.
hello.
Hi, my name is Heather Sudak from Upper Q.
Heather Sudak, I see you on Facebook all the time.
You use my good words, so yes, I have been watching the situation in Barbados and it hurts me. Especially, I know that it was comfortable for Bajans to be on the veranda, hanging out, shooting the breeze and having the breeze. And to think that someone is going to come on your veranda and stick you up,
Yeah.
a lady,
Yes.
and right in Station Hill, I was like, no, that's close to home. Okay, so that bothered me, and I've been watching the situation in Jamaica.
Yes.
which is like really worse, very much worse than in Barbados, but similar. And it is now, Barbados is now adopting those situations with the same bicycle and shooting and kidnapping and holding down a tech and all of that stuff, and getting the people hiring people to take people out or whatever. And each, like you said, they know, the government know who the dons are. I call them the dons, or they call them the dons. The person who picked the people in the community to carry out the task. So once you know the dons, you can get the dons together and reason with them. That's what she's doing. And to get the other little people to stop their nonsense. When a don lets something go, she can call the don and say, what are you doing? I'm paying you to stop that. And that should never be happening in Barbados. I know what, it got so bad in Jamaica that recently what they're doing is, with the gun situation, when someone kills somebody, like how, not accidentally, but just shooting people like that, the person was getting, they had almost 30 years. They up it to 50 years. You shoot somebody 50 years. But if somebody accidentally, they will reason with that person, they would get the 30-year. Other than that, you get the 50 years right after that. And Barbados, we're young in that mode, but we need to go there from Jump Street and let them know we losing you away. That's it. So some of the reforms we can look at other territories. Our whole list has started, and I don't want to say this, but I like it. What they do now, the police has the give certain police in certain areas, the authority take you out. You kill a one, you take it over. So that little by little, they eliminated the heads, cut them off the heads. So we have to, police has to be given the authority and also given the resources. And there will be some bad people in the police department also who will inform the other dogs of what's coming. But without that, give them the support of, we got your back. We can't let Barbados get to that stage. So we can snip it in the bud. So those are some things that we can do. Change the laws and books, the timing, like we said. No bail, whatever. No, you're gone. 50 years. Let's see how much you like that. Again, my name is Heather Sudak, and I'm Jojo person.
In terms of sentencing, and my experience in the court tell me this, that the young people who are sentenced to death always feel that they have a better chance when it goes to the Court of Appeal. Because the slightest mistake that is made on a death sentence, on a conviction for a death sentence, the Court of Appeal will erase it and either send it back for trial or reduce the sentence. So they're not afraid of death sentences. I find they're afraid of long sentences. As you said, either 35 years or life. They hate that because the ones who get the long sentences, they're not liking that. I find that long sentences, this is my professional experience, a long sentence seems to be more of a deterrent than a sentence of death. Because as you know, we haven't sentenced anybody for 41 years. So nobody thinks that he's going to be executed. But when he gets that long sentence, he figures, boy, I got to serve this time, but you don't like it. That's the deterrent. So that going forward and having a discussion on capital punishment and long sentences, I think we may consider the worth of long sentences as opposed to the death penalty. This is another header.
Hello. Yes, this is another header. Heather Cole. Ms. Thorne.
Hello.
Thank you for coming to New York.
My pleasure.
So let people hear what you have to offer. I have been thinking, since I heard the discussion this evening, I want to know specifically what you think the end game is that the government is pursuing in light of the fact our national anthem says that we are we are straight
Guardians of our heritage.
of our heritage, firm craftsmen of our faith. And right now, it doesn't seem that the government has a vision with that in mind. Because every death that happens in Barbados is another generation that has born. They cannot produce for the future. So we have lost it 34 generations for the year, whatever it is.
Right.
So what can we do that the government is not doing? Because right now, I have no idea what their end game is. If half of the young men in Barbados will not be left to produce, and there is this insistence that the population is declining, we don't have people to produce, and then the ones who are left, some of them are leaving and going overseas, and the ones that are left are partying. So what is the end game? I don't know what it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hannah. And thanks, Hannah. I like your question as it pertains to nationhood. And it is something that a lot of Barbadians are looking at and they are concerned about it. Now, you know, Barbadians have described His Excellency Alban'S as the father of the nation. And what this government, and I say this government, this woman is doing, this Prime Minister, you get a sense that she wants to obliterate the memory of Alban'S. And that title called Father of the Nation. And that she wants to replace it. She's hinted at the symbols. She wanted to remove the name Independence Day from November 30th, I call it Barbados National Day. So all of the symbols of Barbados nationhood, this government is attempting to erase those so that Barbados will be known as Double-M's country. That's what she's doing. That's what she's doing, and Barbadians are watching it with much suspicion. Our concept of nationhood, which began in 1966, that is being eroded. And you know something else that is being eroded? The institution that Alban'S built called free secondary education, which got its expression from the common entrance exam, which gave a lot of poor children in Barbados the right, the dignified right, to sit next to the sons of rich boys in Barbados, whether it was the Allen School, Harrison College, or Foundation. It gave us the right to sit there, the dignified right to sit there. And that's why I get emotional about it. And this government is attempting to dismantle that. For what? It is an effort to relegate all poor people's children back into the last classes of society, and that is what this government is doing by dismantling education and telling people about it is educational reform. It is not any educational reform. It is an attempt to push poor people right back down into the low station, because nothing that they have come with has given any indicator that this will be a continued effort to elevate poor people's children. This woman believes that too many poor people's children have been elevated in Barbados. She believes that. They should be mad. They should be mad. So this is not about any educational reform, Heather. This is about dismantling something that made poor people's children a body. I strongly believe that. And I'm going to fight it with all the energy in my body if I survive them. I'm going to fight it.
Welcome to my neighborhood, Canadian. And I was coming here today and I invited my president of the Merchants Association just to come and hear you. And just found out that she lived in Barbados for 5 years as a child.
Welcome.
But I want to go back to the crime situation.
Yeah.
Because we have it here too. We have pockets of it in Canarsie and we are trying to fight it. And I was hoping that you could come with some solutions. But how we are fighting it, and we're not doing a good job. We're giving millions and millions of dollars to former people that went to prison to come out to talk to the kids about what it was in prison. I don't think that's a real solution. We just gave $1.5 million to an entity here in Canarsie, another nonprofit, because I refuse to take it. And they'll open an office and they want to talk to the kids about that. So, but I heard what you said about crime in Barbados. Me and you grew up in Grisex.
That's right.
And the community center was a place that we hang out, we learn our leadership, we learn everything at that community center. I'm trying to rebuild that community center, you know, and I know what we do. But what you said was really important is that the gun lords are filling the gap. What we do here in Canarsie, we are filling the gap with having all the things that the kids want. School books, this thing, that thing. She has on the corners and culture and bringing those things. So we don't have a space for gun lords to do. We do it, we give back. And we give back. I get money from the government, and we give her, and she give it back to the thing. I think what I find out when I go to Barbados is that my friends, his ex-friend, we don't have that sense of giving back to the community. So I could see where the gun lords are taking the space to give to these poor people. And I think that we have to, I took a tour when we wanted to rebuild Canarsie. I had the thing, I went to 8 centers all around the country, and they're dormant. They're not like Grisex. I went to Green Plain and I said, this is the one I like. But they're still dormant. We have to get back to church or something. You know, we used to go to Sunday school. You're right. But these kids nowadays, that's why we want a community center where we can teach the parents here. We have to start teaching the parents the culture what we had back in the Pan Am generation, as you call it. So somehow you guys got to do it down there. We're doing it here. You guys got to do a little better job down there to me.
Thank you. Thanks, Sonny. Whatever became of Boy Blue? Boy Blue? He lived at your house, right? Yeah. Next door. I regret that you did not hear the solutions. And I say, O'Neill, that there are 4 broad approaches towards the solution. The military, that is respecting your police, modernizing your police, giving promotions, giving better pay, that's the military. Okay, the legislative, passing laws that will seriously confront the issue of crime. The socio-economic, and the socio-economic will include asking a government to be not as corrupt as they are, because every transaction that this government is involved in is suspicious. Why do you take up $27 million and pay a firm to do debt restructuring? And the Financial Times of London complained that the figure is too high, and the Financial Times is suspicious. There is a lot of corruption in high places in Barbados. A lot of the money that is leaking from the economy could be used to employ the young men. You can have professional sports in Barbados if you all want to hear about solutions from the Democratic Labour Party. One of our proposals will be to professionalize the game that has made us powerful. We're the only country that produced cigar-filled sobers, and we're so proud of him. And we have not taken advantage of that. We have young men who are dying on the streets, possibly good footballers, possibly good cricketers. Have we invested in them? Or is this government supervising an administration in which millions of dollars is being leaked from the economy to corruption and not going into investment in young people? That's the solution. And I mentioned the cultural as well. The government is taking up millions of taxpayers' dollars, and rather than put it into culture, into the arts, into folk singing, into dance, rather than employing young people as professional music teachers, not only in the community college, but across the system, dance teachers. Where's the money going? To range effect. Those are the solutions. Those are the solutions. We have said this over and over again. The government is either not listening, they're incapable of listening, or they intend to continue to be a transactional government which merely engages in spending money for its own popularity and not for the sake of the country. That is what is happening in Barbados.
The role of the people, what should they be doing?
I can tell you what they need to do. When the next election is called, they need to pass judgment on these people. That's what they need to do. This government has failed the people of Barbados. This government has failed the people of Barbados. This is a propaganda government. This is a propaganda government. The only thing that this government is good at is propaganda. Sweet words. Talking a lot of nonsense. Whole of country approach. And when asked to deal with crime, not about here. And guns don't walk and guns don't talk. A lot of foolishness to intelligent people. People who are gathering and trying to seriously confront the problem of criminal wrongdoing in Barbados is met by a government that is prepared to do two things. Talk a lot of foolishness, borrow a lot of money that we can't afford to repay, and to preach a lot of propaganda. To give young people in Barbados the feel-good effect. If a man is sucking salt from Monday to Friday and you put him in a party on Saturday night and he walk up for the whole night, perhaps he will feel good. And he will wait for the next Saturday night to walk up and feel good again. And that becomes his life's ultimate objective, to be at the party, not in the church that you want him to go to, while the deputy prime minister is abusing the church and saying that the churches don't do anything for people, that it is the drug lords. You understand what is happening in our country, O'Neill? I want you to understand what is happening in your country. Vote them out when the time comes. They have failed.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say something. There is a correlation between poverty, between education and crime. So I work in social services. I've been doing it for more than 20 years, and I've worked with people who are very marginalized. And so I'm aware of what I'm talking about. So I'm talking to the people of Barbados. You have to stand up and you have to vote. There was a survey that was recently done by the president, and the survey said that more than 95% of the people that they interviewed in prison in Barbados operated or read at a 3-year-old level. And I want you to think about that. Think about when your child was 3 years old, how they were reading. And don't tell me that that is not the responsibility of government, but we have to get up and we have to hold government accountable for what it is that they need to do to our young people. And so when we sit down and we pass judgment on young people who are basically trying to survive in the society that we have created as adults and that our government has created, we have to take ourselves accountable for that. And you have to get up and you have to vote. So this whole idea about a 30 love and everybody laughing at that, that is not funny, right? If Mr. Thorne was not on the opposition, if we did not have Marcia Weeks in Barbados, I would not know what is going on in Barbados. And so here in the diaspora, I know, Mr. Thorne, you said that unless you have a home in Barbados, you shouldn't be able to vote. Nobody tells me that when I am sending money to Barbados, or when I'm helping a child in Barbados, or when I'm helping to feed a family that I have never met, right? Nobody tells me that I can't vote. And I think that we should be allowed to vote, because the reality is the reason why they don't want us in the diaspora to vote, because we're not the ones that are home. We're not the ones that are going to sit down and let some person tell us how we're supposed to think. We're the ones that's going to stand up, and we're the ones that's going to change the face of government.
Thanks, Paul. Like Sam, I will say to you, let the discussion continue in the diaspora, and let your voice be heard at home. It's a necessary voice. Sam, let's go.
Good evening, Derek Allen, Ralph's executive assistant. My forte, community development and youth development. The government of the past had something called constituency council, which provided direct responses in the communities. The government came in, changed them, shut them down. So quick response to challenges in the communities went through the door. They instituted a commission under Thorne as an alternative or an excuse for closing the councils down. Mr. Thorne finished a report how long ago?
3 years.
3 years. And that is to get connection between the communities and the state.
And its resources, yeah.
So that we can get action at the community level, to build youth groups, community groups, to strengthen families, to get the village life going again. Mr. Thorne's report has remained in a consultant state from the day he handed in. No action on it. So when people ask us, Mr. Thorne, what we doing, a lot of the things that need to be done, the templates have already been designed. It is that you must have the political will and interest to do these things. And what I say to people in Barbados now is, if you are in a hole, as we are in a hole, and a man reaches over you with a rope, take rope, do you stop and ask him if he's strong enough? You tell him, send the rope. And I'm saying to you all, Mr. Thorne is the rope for Barbados. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Noreen Madas, and I founded the Canarsie Merchants Association and have been working over the last few years with Harold, who is a part of the Canarsie Community Development, Inc. I actually was in Barbados a few months ago. Thank you very much for coming and sharing. Let me just say, on behalf of Canarsie, we're grateful for the cultural celebration that took place yesterday. I wasn't there because I keep Sabbath, so, but there were representation from the Canarsie Merchants Association. So thank you. On behalf of the Diaspora, there are ways that we can work and support. And so on behalf of merchants, on the merchant side, there are opportunities, as Harold said, that as an emerging organization that we have a lot of creative ideas. But while I was in Barbados, you talk about visitors, I went to the Barbados Museum, and there was a group of students from a university in Boston, and they were coming to eye internships in Barbados. And I thought that that was really interesting. So when there are a lot of people who are coming internationally, they love the culture in Barbados. And they're now going to be vying for opportunities that locals may not be able to take advantage of. So these are things that has to be considered. I have family back there, and they own businesses, and I've talked about creative ways, you know, for organizations and merchants to work together. So that might be something that you consider, because it does take a lot of work. I do feel it's people power. You know, we pride ourselves that Bajans, you know, the literacy rate was pretty high, and to hear what is happening is very disturbing. But I do feel, as you're saying, I can see it's by design. So I think us here, what we need to do is to figure out how we can give back and charge us in working, you know, with other organizations that, again, we know corruption, right? It's not something that we're not aware of, but to work with organizations that could do the work with young people, technology. I mean, you have a university there. You know, AI, there's opportunities where young people can be working with local businesses here. So again, thank you so much. I look forward to working with you, but there are solutions. And as I mentioned, in terms of the people power, we don't leave this room feeling as though we're not hopeful, because there is a lot of hope and we can do things. The young lady mentioned about, you know, giving back, you know, to the community and supporting. So I just want, you did talk about there are 4 areas, I guess 4 pillars. That social economic issue. There are very wealthy businesses in Barbados. And so I'm just wondering, like, what are your plans to incentivize those businesses to give back, create internship opportunities for young people?
Thanks very much. As a matter of fact, we've been having active discussions with our spokesperson on sports, Dr. Dawn Marie Armstrong. And she has been saying to me that you cannot professionalize sports only with government input, that it has to be the private sector as well. You did raise the question as to how are you going to approach wealthy businesses, but not only approaching them with a hat in hand, but approaching them and saying to them, look, this is an industry in which you may invest. I prefer the word investment over sponsorship. Yeah, that's the word I prefer. And there is fertile ground for the professionalization of sport, including investment not only from government, but from the private sector. It is done. It is done in IPL cricket. It is done in CPL cricket. There are wealthy organizations that are already invested in cricket. But we want that investment to go towards local cricket, the cricket that produced Garfield Sobers and Seymour Nurse and West Hall. Yeah. But thanks very much for the work you've been doing. And I know that Senator Worrell will be having a conversation with you at the end of this event. Thank you. You have a gentleman there.
Good evening, Mr. Thorne.
Welcome.
Also. My name is Michael Bryan.
Bryan?
Bryan, yes. I'm from Gazette. I believe your brother worked with me at Fortune Priory.
I have 8. You have to tell me which one.
I can't remember his name, but he did technical. John. Right. And you're related to Marjorie as well.
That's my sister.
Right. Well, Marjorie and I, we go way back. This is the first time I'm meeting you.
Pleasure.
However, I had to come here this evening because I'm concerned about this concept of a debt trap that Barbados is in.
Yes.
I read an article by Professor Don Marshall, where he said that even though we have just paid off, quote unquote, some of the IMF debt, the funds are not cycling in a direction where it builds the economy and build wealth for the local Barbadians. So I can remember when Errol Barrow came into power, because I'm of that generation that probably your age as well. When my older brothers could not find employment, and a lot of the guys in Rosex couldn't find work, and then they built the factories. There was a diversification program. Yes, yes. So my question would be now that America has just passed this quote unquote beautiful bill, and all the leading economists here say we're going into a recession. That means that if we go into a recession, it's going to impact Barbados in the next 4 or 5 years. So we have to have a strategy where we produce products where we export to gain that foreign exchange. Because if we do not diversify economy, tourism, with a recession, tourism, nobody's going to come to the island. So you have to diversify, you get back into sugar and different products. So I want to know what is the strategy of the Democratic Party to pursue that diversity strategy.
Yes, thank you very much. Excellent intervention, Michael. You sound like a Gazette man in truth. First of all, let me tell you about the debt situation in Barbados. And you need to know, New York, that the government borrowed $500 million to pay the IMF. Now, all of you in here shop, take loans, and do whatever you do as financial agents. The government borrowed $500 million at 8% US at 8% interest, back a loan which was 4%. It is madness. It is madness. And Michael, the $500 million will therefore not go into the economy. The $500 million is being used to repay loans. So it is not an investment into the economy. There is no part of it, as far as I'm aware, that will be used in the economy to generate the economy or to generate economic growth. It is being borrowed at 8% to repay a loan which was cheaper. Financial madness. That is what is happening in Barbados. And I want to tell you about these debt swap arrangements. One of the hidden aspects of the debt swap, or whatever they call it, arrangements, debt for nature and so on, the National Insurance Fund is being used as a guinea pig, and the government is not saying that. When the debt restructuring was done in 2018, and we paid $27 million to have it done, the gentlemen, the gurus who advised the government to do a debt restructuring took $1.3 billion that was to the National Insurance Fund. In other words, the Poor People's Insurance Fund was chopped off to the extent of $1.3 billion. In other words, the National Insurance Fund became poor. And in the aftermath of that, they have had to increase the retirement age from 65 to 67. All these things are connected. This government has been anti-worker. This government has functioned as an anti-poor government. Why, in these financial arrangements, must the National Insurance Fund be made the guinea pig, the sacrificial lamb? And there is evidence now that in the debt for nature swaps that they're doing, the NIS is bleeding again, sometimes up to the amount of $300 million. So that is the hidden aspect of these transactions. That these, as I say, a lot of pretty words, a lot of pretty talk, a lot of propaganda. But at the end of the day, what is happening? What is the reality? That in these financial transactions, the NIS fund, the Poor People's Insurance, the insurance that is meant to safeguard people's lives after retirement or pre-retirement if they're injured, that fund is being depleted by the government in these international transactions. And Barbadians are not being told this. That's the hidden aspect to it. The Americans say there's nothing called a free lunch. There's nothing called a free lunch. We are not benefiting. It is the Poor People's Insurance that is making the sacrifice to make a government look good. That is what is happening in Barbados, and Barbadians here and in Barbados need to be aware of it. Thank you very much, Michael. You're a real great manager.
Good evening.
Mr. How are you?
Hi, how you doing? My name is Sherlock World.
Sherlock?
I don't know if you're related. You speak up. Anyway, Sam talked about the Constitution earlier. Now, they suspend the Constitution to bring Barbados into this thing called republic. Suspend. That means the government right now is running off of nothing. You cannot pass laws if you don't have a constitution, correct? Well, that's from here. You don't have no laws. You cannot pass anything. So that means the government that is running Barbados right now is unconstitutional. It is illegitimate, correct? Well, when I finish, you answer. Good. Now, next, on Marcy Week's show, she mentioned, but I heard it before. When in Ghana, Mayor Motley, the Prime Minister of Barbados, took our flag to Ghana and create a ritual, which is a spiritual, demonic thing, and put it in the ground. We don't know if it is still there or not, but you're not supposed to put it in the ground. Right? So Barbados is now under that ritual. That ritual. That's why you see a lot of crime there right now. And I heard, I don't know how true it is, that she's under investigation by the US, Canada, and the UK. Because you talk about crime, because she is the head of the snake. She is the head of the crime family. The crime that is going on, she is the head. As Bob said earlier, in St. James North. I listened to the videos and stuff from Marcy Reeves, and they said they had to move the votes from one place to the next. A location to count. Why is that? You count them in the same location that the people vote. People can take the vote and put them in a seat. In Dominica, Antigua, I don't know about Trinidad, because Trinidad just changed government, so, you know, it is, so you gotta, because Dominica, as I understood, and from Dominicans, they are paying people to come in to vote. And I heard, because I was in Barbados last year, because this 30 love and 30 love, it ain't sit right with me yet. It ain't sit right with me, period. It don't make sense. So it is, that too, to me, is illegitimate. So that means that there's some shenanigans went on there. So you gotta find out how this thing is going on with the votes. Because you can't just have 30 love. But what's gonna happen next time? So I hope, for me, because one day I want to come back to my island if it is still there. Because the way this lady is going, it is not going to be there. So somebody else, there ain't going to be no land. All the West Coast is building hotels for what? You don't have a lot of tourism. People, I can't remember because I'm not in the hotel industry. You don't have a lot of tourists coming there. The only people that really go to Barbados, UK. A few people from over here. That's what we get. So.
Thank you, Shirley. I have no expertise in ritualism, nor international investigations. I know nothing about that. But you made a very interesting point about the Constitution. And it is a legal sin to claim that you're a republic, and 4 years later, you don't have a Republican constitution, a constitution that is in essence one in which power derives from the bottom and goes up towards the persons who are heading the state. We actually have a constitution which is in part, only by one minor amendment, which makes the Governor General a president and therefore the head of state. All the rest of the constitution remains Westminster. It remains what it used to be. And in my view, the government through the Prime Minister is taking advantage of that. And my view is that real power in Barbados resides with one person. One person who is attempting to influence, manipulate, and manage every public institution in Barbados. And when I say public institution, I'm including the media. Because I believe that the Prime Minister is trying to influence what the media puts out in Barbados. That is what is happening in Barbados. That is what Oinafa meant when he talked about despotism. That is, we have dictatorial government in Barbados. That is what we have. And we have it in part because we have gone republic, but we have not moved from a constitution with Westminster values, and we have not gone to a constitution that is genuinely Republican. An advantage is being taken by what we lawyers call a lacuna, a hole in the law. And in that hole is filled with prime ministerial power. And Barbadians need to understand that. Thank you very much, Shirley.
So moving the pace along, I have another question. So we've given up a piece of our prime real estate in Barbados, the Afrexim Bank. I know that recently there was a downgrade on that bank. Can you talk a little bit, because I haven't heard anything from the Barbados government after the downgrade, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I'd be happy to. I'd be happy to. I take it you all heard of the Afrexim Bank deal. They like to use the word deal. This is where 5 acres, I think, of land, prime land. Look, the Pan Am generation, a lot of us were born on that spot. That was the old General Hospital, Ainsley. Yeah, that land that was the General Hospital and then became the Ministry of Education. That land was taken up late one night in Parliament and handed to a bank called Afrexim Bank for free. And the government sought to explain it by saying, well, it is like the Caribbean Development Bank. The lands up in Wildy were given to the Caribbean Development Bank for free because Barbados is a member of the Caribbean Development Bank. The Caribbean Development Bank is genuinely a development bank that lends money only to its members, Jamaica, Trinidad, Guyana, and so on and so forth. So that giving land to them, you are investing in yourself. Barbados is a member, is a shareholder of the Caribbean Development Bank. It is genuinely then a development bank that lends money to the member countries for development projects. Afrexim Bank is not that kind of a bank. The Caribbean Development Bank lends money only to governments. The Afrexim Bank lends money to private people for profit. The Caribbean Development Bank profits, but it profits from its members because you lend them for development projects and they repay you to their profit. So in a sense, you're profiting from yourself. You're a member of the bank, you are a shareholder, you are profiting. Afrexim Bank is a private bank based in Africa. And it is not like the Caribbean Development Bank. So the government began on that premise by telling people that it is like the Caribbean Development Bank. The deal began with a lie. It is a lie to say that it is a development bank like Caribbean Development Bank. People want to know why. People in Barbados struggling to get half of a house stock. And you go to a multi-million-dollar bank and give them 5 acres of the taxpayers' land for free. And it has not been fully explained to Barbadians, why have you done this? Why have you done it? There are a lot of unanswered questions, Val. I don't know if we have the expertise to answer, but I'll tell you this. When Barbadians begin to speculate, as they have been speculating, can you fault them? Can you fault them for saying that something is wrong? Or Shakespeare said something is rotten in the state of Denmark? Something is wrong with that deal. And they expect Barbadians to forget it. We are not going to forget it. Explain why you would take up 5 acres of prime real estate and give how many? 5 hectares and give to a foreign bank. And it doesn't matter where it is from, China, Africa, wherever. There is something suspicious about it. And Barbadians need to be told by a government that is not transparent. All along there. All along there. No, the award is on the other side. That's another aspect to the story. I can tell you about that over drinks later. But these are the deals into which this government is entering and distracting people with parties. So the young people may not be sensitive to what is really going on in their country. And the older people who ought to be sensitive, maybe they're indifferent. Because if you're the beneficiary of a transaction from government, you're going to close your eyes to the realities. But a few people may benefit from government's transactions, but the majority are suffering. You go to the supermarket tomorrow, or do like the lady last night, leave the supermarket and become a victim of crime, and you see real suffering in Barbados. Every visit to the supermarket in Barbados is an exercise in suffering. Prices are killing Barbadians. People are dying from NCDs. Nobody knows why. There's a lot of pressure, personal pressure to survive in Barbados. We just lost one of our comrades, candidate for St. Lucia stroke. Alvin was doing 3 jobs, canvassing in St. Lucie, doing insurance, and DJing at night. When was he sleeping? When was he resting? But he is only one. There is a lot of pressure. A lot of young people in Barbados are dying. Pressure up. They're suffering. I saw a thing there with the lady on social media last night. 4 or 5 children and she's put out of a house in St. Lucie, what is going to happen to her? And they may not be sympathetic towards her, but we as compassionate people, what about the children? They're all children. They're society's children. And you have a country in which children are suffering. I always tell the story, and I want New York to know that there are little children going to school and falling asleep at 10 o'clock because they're hungry. They have not had breakfast, and some are not going because the parents are too ashamed to send them to school hungry. That is happening in your Barbados. While there is rampant corruption, while we are leaking multi-millions of dollars out of the economy, and the welfare department cannot support poor people adequately. Val, it is all connected. Corruption is connected to suffering of the people in Barbados. There is too much suffering among poor people in Barbados. And this government solution, bring them up to the botanical gardens and feed them. Let them jump and walk up and carry on. They can forget. They can forget their suffering. And that is this government's relationship with poor people in Barbados. Too much suffering, too much corruption. And corruption and suffering is connected. The more corruption you have, the more suffering you will have. Honestly, that is the dilemma we in Barbados face. We have to get rid of these people. So when I hear this nonsense about 30 love, let them sing that tune. But Barbadians are singing a different tune. A tune of suffering. There's too much suffering in Barbados. Call up your families home and ask them. Call up the teachers who have to take lunch to school to give the children. Going to St. Michael districts where the young boys, 14 and 13 years old who are not going to school are catching chickens and selling them for $10 to give their mothers to buy food. That is happening in Barbados. Then you come to Barbados and see all the chickens in the gas stations and the car parks. They're disappearing because the little boys are catching them. They're being sold to certain groups of people as what they call them, organic foods. The ones who don't want the ones that are fed on the steroids. Precisely. They want yard fowls to eat. They want to eat healthy fowls. And our little boys catching them and selling them at 10 o'clock on mornings and midday when they should be in school. This is happening in your beloved country. So we have not come for a reunion to tell you nice stories about the community center, how sweet it was in the 60s and 70s. It is not all sweet in Barbados. And the government is breaching its responsibility to properly manage the affairs of our beloved country. I say that to you this evening. Thank you very much.
My brothers and sisters, and we have come to the end of tonight's exercise, which you would agree with me that was very informative and educational. So we thank our comrade, Honorable Ralph Thorne, for this address, and I hope that you will continue to lend your support to Comrade Thorne and the other members of the Democratic Party. So again, thank you very much for gracing us with your presence. You have been a very okay. This discussion will continue over a drink. Okay, so once again, thank you very much for gracing us with your presence, and we will see you in the back where we have refreshments for you. So again, thank you and good night.